months. So they could be hiding something strong on that map too. And we're going to find out if that's going to be the case right now, folks, because we're getting into it. The first map between these two teams, our last initial matchup of the major. Let's get into it. It's OXG versus TSM.
Oh, it's going to be a good time, John. Let's see what our initial bans are going to be here on Oregon. We're already going to have one that we don't see regularly, but still a very, very strong ban. NOMAD getting banned away, taking away that flank watch early on.
See flanking, overall roaming becoming a pretty key part of this, especially when it comes to the early game. So not too surprising to see that being knocked out just to make the job for the defenders a little bit easier to work with. Ace also going to get knocked out despite the changes. He's still incredibly strong, and that AK-12 is not to be trifled with. So we'll see him knocked out as our last attacker ban. For the defenders, Wamai is going to be first up to the plate to get knocked out here, unfortunately. A lot of independence to be given to anybody who can play Wamai on top of just his general usefulness when combined with Jaeger. Those changes aren't in play yet, so he's still a desirable choice to ban out, as is VALKYRIE, as we're going to see her be the final ban.
Yeah, lots of changes in the pipeline, but nothing affecting this major, so don't have to jump into that deep end. But Wamai and VALKYRIE being removed. I really like these defensive bans, specifically the Wamai coming in. Wamai has been a universal ban for the most part inside of Rainbow recently, so I really like that they're still applying that, specifically to Oregon. This map takes a lot of utility to burn through, so taking Wamai away is going to make things just a touch easier for the offense.
All right, guys. Well, first round getting started. It's looking like we're going to start it with a basement defense here for OXG. And taking a look at the overall operator lineup, we can see more than likely what's going to be a fairly standard basement setup here. A lot of those Goyo shields will be pressured out towards construction. Mira is still in play here as well for this matchup too, so we can see a lot of preset angles behind those mirrors, which can be very powerful and very, very annoying for the attacker to deal with if they don't have a way to deal with those mirrors. So a lot's going to be on the plate here for TSM to try and get past for their very first round. They've certainly got themselves a challenge built up to start this series.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even with the Wamai ban in play, right? Like, there's still going to be quite a bit of a struggle for both of these teams. But as you were saying, with Oxygen and especially the map bans that ensued between these two, it's very difficult for Oxygen to have a leg up inside of this game. It's really going to be them battling from downhill, trying to fight upwards towards TSM. I still think that they definitely have what it takes to do it, though. There's so much veteran talent on this team. And I mean, looking overall at what Oxygen have been able to accomplish in the last 6 months, you cannot count these people out of this fight.
Definitely not the case. Well, it's time to see if TSM is ready for the attack. We're going to see a lot of pressure go into small tower initially. Now, this will clear out any initial roam game that's going to be in this position from Oxygen. And thankfully for TSM, we're not seeing a whole lot of that. Oxygen is focused almost entirely on the horizontal setup here, trying to deny presence closer to the actual site instead of trying to scavenge for kills elsewhere on the map.
Could possibly have an early pick here as Merc's working his way down Freezer, but assuming that TSM is just going to be going for a Freezer laundry take, we'll see as this round continues on, and that seems to be exactly what TSM want to do. They've got Bolo and Merc, the two soft destruction duos, and some of the most potent fraggers in the entire game at this point in time on those soft destruction operators, trying to work this entire map. They have the mid floor already, so it's just down to that hard destruction and then getting down into the nitty gritty. Where is the positions of these Oxygen members?
You already know there was a little bit of a strategy change up there from OXG, as I believe they removed one of their Goyo shields from the construction hold and ended up placing it closer to Freezer in counteraction to all that pressure that went into small tower initially. So we'll see if that ends up panning out. As like I said, TSM still very much leaning in that direction, but things could change as we still have a minute and a half in this round. Joe's just going to quickly pop open the laundry hatch when the need should arise here with one of his Exos. We'll see the other one is already being opened, I do believe, as well by Chalo right now on the Maverick there. That'll be the electrical hatch getting open. And once that has been popped, TSM should have everything they need to at least start to put pressure on this pillar and construction holds.
That's exactly what's going to happen. Attempting to burn all of these ADSs placed around by Vertical might have some pressure from the Vector, and they will. Fox 8 peeks, but immediately dips back into the safety of Tarps. Very nice play from him. No damage onto the TSM members, but showing face early on could make it to where TSM don't want to get nearly as aggressive. They're still trying to work this back staircase, though. Plenty of utility to utilize still to try and slow down this push. Going to be mostly leaning on nitro cells for that post-plant situation or to try and stop it altogether. Vertical still wants to fight for this pillars area, though. He'll think better about it. Begins to back up inside of the freezer hallway. Still just waiting on these Oxygen, or these TSM members, excuse me, to hop downstairs. This is going to be the first one now as Merc hops into electrical. First nitro cell goes off, but it's going to be a wide miss. Merc now waiting for the rest of TSM to work their way in, but this seems to be a multi-pronged attack as Chala's now down at the bottom of laundry stairs. He finds one, but he's going to swing wide, ends up missing some critical shots onto vertical, and that could have been the pick needed to try and make this happen.
The moment here, it's really TSM waiting for Oxygen to make a move, and they've finally done it, but it's not paying off for TSM in any way, shape, or form here. Bolo, the only player that's been able to impact here. Gio gonna get a piece of the action too. In fact, let's make it a double kill as they move through. Oh, what? TSM end up scavenging that round in the very last seconds by fragging it out against the entire OXG roster. OXG had remained stalwart up until that final moment. Finally, some aggression from them, and even then it was relatively restrained, but still TSM explode suddenly at the end of the round and take it anyway.
What a round from TSM there. As you said, you thought it was going OXG's way. They were very restrained, played it so well down to the last second. 15 seconds left on the clock. TSM forces their way into sight, spearheads their way into storage, taking out every single member along the way, finally wrapping things up inside of Elbow. Amazing round from TSM, and what a comeback off of what was desperately needed after we saw some botched gunfire at the bottom of laundry stairs. Great stuff by them, but now it's down to Oxygen to try and bounce back from that. And exactly what went wrong there? Well, for Oxygen, when it comes down to those harsh executes with very low time remaining, it mostly gets dedicated towards, your crossfires not being handled properly. So more than likely, TSM were able to get a very pivotal entry frag and then worked their way into sight based off that. Great stuff by TSM overall.
I would argue multiple entry frags with how quickly things fell apart there too. That was a surgical execution from TSM given the amount of time they had left to get those kills. Very, very close, but very, very impressive indeed from our attackers as they get started out on the right foot here on Oregon. Now going to see if they can push that advantage even further on a reattempt of the same strategy now from Oxygen. Obviously with some differences coming in. No Mira, for instance, and we're going to see a Cade brought in there on Bio.
Smart adjustment, slows down TSM quite a lot, and they also don't have a Maverick, so this is going to be stuck for the most part unless TSM can find some solution, but simply based off of that utility from Oxygen, I'm assuming that TSM are going to attempt a freezer main take, simply because it's going to be extremely difficult to try and get that hatch open. Merc, as well as a few other members of TSM, can also attempt to contest the bottom of freezer stairs, just with multiple bodies instead, so could be a good option for them. So we'll see how TSM tries to interact with this Kaid now. They have no options to try and get rid of this Electro Claw.
Coming down to that first minute of the round having been expired. Not a massive amount of time gone away just yet as TSM primarily continue to explore their intel options here as they use up their drone count. Oxygen bringing a very similar flair to their strategy as they did back on round number one, focusing very much on the site itself. I would imagine there's going to be a bit more of a proactive defense put up against some of these entry points, like on backstairs, construction, as well as the position that Laxing is currently holding over in freezer as well. And that's just because part of the reason why TSM was able to make those frags work is because they did get right to the edge of the site, basically, and were only a step or two away from actually peeking into members of Oxygen. So if they can try to get those kills on more advanced angles, get TSM to maybe hold back a bit, get them to be more restrained, and allow Oxygen to play into those more turtley positions in the late round, then hopefully, in Oxygen's mind, that they'll be able to win this round.
Yeah, so far the pacing inside of this round mirrors what we saw the last time. I mean, very slow TSM working their way towards the site, but making sure that they don't miss anything. Oh my God, Bolo! A quick double kill, more execution style than anything in pillars. Lots of Oxygen members laying across the floor. TSM now with a very strong start. I don't think that they assumed anyone was going to be making a quick entry on that back staircase, but Bolo's now going for more. Drones inside. They've refragged onto Merc, but what is that even worth? Vertical and Foxay already down. Now TSM get to try and work this plan in.
So this is the problem with those slightly more aggressive positions, that it does leave you potentially open to swings like that from Bolo. Achieved is now going to get the third kill against the OXG roster. Laxing was working at a flank on one point, although it seems like he's had to call it off and just hold his position on freezers since it's too risky to leave Bio alone in this situation. Now, Bio could really be the hero to save the day here if he throws the Nitro Cell with some good timing. Looks like it's going to get chucked, and there it is! The double from Bio that puts this round back on even terms. And with only 15 seconds left, TSM don't have a lot of time to turn it back into their favor. Bio denies another player as they go down and completes the round as well for the 4K. Beautiful hold from Bio as Oxygen shut down round number 2.
Well, it would not be a Rainbow Six LAN if things were extremely unpredictable, and that's exactly what I want from both of these teams. They talked about it on the analyst desk. TSM and Oxygen, two of the most frag-heavy rosters in all of North America, and we're seeing it now as TSM is stepping up to the plate, but Oxygen are just knocking them out of the park. That was an absolute dinger from the Oxygen members. I mean, way to shut down Bolo, and not only Bolo, but the rest of that TSM push. Down so many members. Great stuff by Oxygen. We're now headed upstairs to kids' dorms. 1-1 right now, and it's a neck-and-neck race.
Bit riskier there on the hold from OXG, like I said, because they played slightly more aggressive positions to hopefully win out the fights. Works by Freezer, allowing Laxing to maintain his position throughout the round, and possibly even saves Bio there by preventing him from getting pinched had Laxing lost his fight. So the only angle that TSM has to work with is the construction push, as well as that pillar control that Bolo had been able to get with, to be fair, the very beautiful double kill that he found earlier on in the round. Unfortunately, that's not enough because Bio remains completely stable in his own position and is able to just shut them down 1 by 1, or in the case of the Nitro Cell, 2 by 2 there in order to win the round. So OXG now going to rotate upstairs into the next logical site, which is going to be, of course, up here in kids.
Yeah, and that's a great start for Biologic as well. This is something that we've talked about a lot inside of Stage 2, saying that he needs to step up. This roster needs him to perform whenever available, and right now he's doing just that. 5-0-1 to start us off here on Oregon. Still a long day ahead of him as well, but nice to see this bright star finally showing up when he's needed most. Oxygen so far on their defenses will look strong, but as you said, those very aggressive positions almost ended up losing them that last round. We'll see if they try and second guess that, but as of right now, I don't think that that's going to happen. I think that Oxygen are going to continue to play this aggressive style, especially with, well, Vertical's current positioning. T3 of the tower, Vert's going to try and sit here and find some picks.
Anything, they're doubling down on it with Vertical's current position here, so they're very aware of it. You can tell because, look, we just looked at like 3 different players. Each one of them is looking at a different window right now, so they're very much being aware of this player in tower. And that's what's great about it, right? Is Vertical doesn't even necessarily have to do anything. As long as the attack knows he's here, he can waste a lot of time. And more than anything, he can waste a lot of eyes being drawn towards him that would otherwise allow for the attackers to get a trade in a certain situation, save a teammate's life, confirm another kill. It's taking a lot away from the rest of this push here, even if he's not able to necessarily do anything else with it.
Well, TSM, slow offense here, but as we were saying, more than likely due to Vertical inside of the T3 area for Big Tower. Oxygen has a nice setup here as well. Fox A playing aggressively to the north side of Attic to support his friend inside of Big Tower. So TSM have already switched gears here and are actually applying pressure to double window. Merc, using one of his breaching rounds, tries to set up a hole to look inside of dorms, but doesn't find too much. This is mostly leaning on their intel game right now, trying to discover where these Oxygen members are so they can try and make this push happen. Frag grenades now trickle in from below to try and get some damage onto Bio, but nothing going to land. TSM at a loss for words right now.
Bio being incredibly close there on some of those damage bits, though, especially the grenade. We even saw the red flash for a second as it came in from below him, but apparently it's not close enough. So he maintains, stays in that deep position. And with no one else close to the site even really being touched here so far by Oxygen, it has to beg the question, what are we going to see from TSM? We've seen this before. Let's remember back in round 1, it was a very similar situation, and TSM were still able to make it work. But does TSM have the positioning on this site to make the play work in the same way? I would personally say no right now, especially, yeah, when you consider that Bio is going to have the complete capability to deny big window. Now that we're coming down to the wire here, and in those last 30 seconds, he can just spam the smoke grenades on it.
That's exactly what he's going to do. Anyone that hops in this window is going to be taking quite some damage. It won't necessarily kill them, but Oh, Merc actually going to end up working his way into dorms. A quick 2K here as Oxygen lights up the scoreboard. Geometric tries to fight his way in. He needs to put this plant down, though, as that timer's getting dangerously low, but it's not even going to matter. Slash wipes the board with him, and this is going to be a makeshift flawless round for Oxygen.
Nicely done by OXG. Once again, just holding on to their setup and eventually shutting it down with utility when it comes down to those last couple seconds. TSM are looking for opportunities to find impact in the early round before they're willing to commit themselves to a site, and that is costing them a lot of time right now. It worked for round number 1, but the strategy's starting to falter a little bit here as we get deeper into the map, in my opinion.
Yeah, they tried to go for the double window take, as we were talking about, and they wanted to try and pair that with, you know, somebody standing on white so they could attempt to have a plant. They want the cross there with Achieved on the sledge, like we saw, but he ends up getting taken down, as well as our other TSM member, Merc, working his way into dorms. So it's very difficult for TSM to try and set up this cross, especially with how patient Oxygen was on their setup. We saw Vertical upstairs inside of T3 for so long in support with Foxay, and they just wasted so much time. TSM just stood outside, stared at windows, eventually tried to go for that double window take, but nothing coming of it. And it was strictly because of the sheer amount of time that Oxygen wasted.
So now we move into probably still the most heavily evolving part of the map in the way that this is being played, and it's going to be either of the two downstairs sites. Cafeteria has been on lock for a while here, but for the teams that are playing into it, this site is changing up every once in a while with how teams are starting to work their way into it. It does look like it's going to be played in pretty typical fashion, though, especially with the attic hold coming in here more than likely, and the extended play over here into the upstairs site so that the roamers can try and deny presence for as long as possible, especially when it comes to trying to deny those top-down angles, as that will make it very, very difficult to stop the plant or even retake, especially in a kitchen.
Yeah, and those vertical angles can be so pivotal, as you were saying. I mean, that top pressure, especially, very, very strong if TSM are able to get a hold of it. So we'll see how Oxygen try and battle with that. But for now, they've got an extended roam game going on. Foxay finagling around white stairs, as well as the rest of Oxygen, just spread evenly throughout the entire map, having Laxing on a deep roam near main as well. So TSM need to try and make some magic happen with this drone game. They've already lost 3 drones super early on here, so with Oxygen's lineup, especially with Laxin in play on that Mozzie, this could be difficult for them to find these early picks.
Mark gonna start things off here as he sneaks his way down to back tower. A bit of a surprise present too as Slash swings up, looking for a kill against someone I think coming in from the tower door based on the way I was looking at it, but it's way off the mark, and Merc gets pretty much a free pick against Slash as a result of that. Even some foot damage on Foxay here too. He tries to run out for a bit of aggression on his own regard.
Little bits of damage here and there, but yeah, as you said, Slash ends up getting taken down. Still plenty of time on the board for TSM to try and make something happen, and with that early pick, it's definitely going to assist them, but they still have to worry about this deep roam like we were talking about earlier. Laxing's already worked his way all the way to Big Tower stairs. He has to try and make something happen here, and he ends up picking up one, but oh no, he burns Bolo! You thought he'd get him, but just quicker to the trigger. Biologic lighting up the scoreboard as well. Oxygen all over TSM inside a Big Tower.
And now even in Big Tower here too, you got Foxay still maintaining control. He's finally going to be able to get a piece of the action as he takes out Chala. That's only left Geo alive, who's had to run for the hills or run for the towers, as it would seem. He'll try to re-entry by small tower and probably work a bit of a slow lurk over towards the sites and potentially get him access to kitchen, but going to be immediately denied. He'll run into a goo mine pretty quickly upon entering here. Even a second one, just in case the first one didn't give audio confirmation. He's got both of the exo charges, so why not take out this wall so he at least has better purview over the site when it gets opened up. Good prediction on the swing here from Vertical. Is able to counter that out with relative ease, but still 30 seconds left, still 3 players up. Geo's got 10 seconds per player right now. Let's see if he can get it done. Swing in once again. Successful transition into the next room, but finally meets his maker there as Foxay takes him down and Oxygen claim round number 4.
That's 3 rounds in a row right now for Oxygen. We were talking about Oregon in between these two teams and how this could possibly be a problem, but Oxygen looking really, really strong right now up against TSM. So looks like we are going to have a timeout, folks, here, just to see if anyone can talk and figure some things out. And really quickly, gonna have to transition that back down. Hi guys, I'm sorry, my desk had to move very quickly. Anyways, getting into Oxygen versus TSM on this Oregon map. So far, so good for Oxygen. These defenses have been super strong, very potent. TSM haven't been able to battle through this at all, especially inside of these last 2 rounds, John, where we saw Oxygen just be extremely aggressive. After that second round where we saw things tend to falter early on with Bolo getting those picks, I thought that they were going to slow down, especially after inside of that last round we saw that early pick by Merc, but that was not the case. Why do you think Oxygen's trying to stick to this game plan?
I mean, it's working, right? The aggressive play, it's working for them right now. This is a TSM pause, by the way, for those that are curious, just a bit of clarification. As it's been a while since we've been on land, this is not a technical pause. This is an actual pause. So these are allowed now because we are playing on the land client. So it's always nice to see. Gives these teams some time to talk about it. But anyway, going back to what you were asking, I mean, we saw it, right? In round number 1, OXG tried to play back, tried to play passive, tried to play very turtly on the basement site. It did not end up working for them because TSM was still able to get pretty much just outside of the site, and along with using their drones, they were able to get info in all these positions and all at once just execute at the end of the round. So ever since then, they've been expanding their net out bit by bit here, casting it out a little further each time, and every single time it's been working. So there's really no reason to slow that play style down right now for OXG.
No, absolutely not. I completely agree with you. I think that the thing that Oxygen has been doing the best inside of that aggression, though, is the damage to TSM's drone economy. I mean, every single time I look to the blue side of the screen, it seems they're missing 3, 4, 5 drones. And that's something that's super difficult to fight through, especially with how Oxygen have been playing. They've been playing super unpredictable and in a lot of corners that you wouldn't expect.
That also plays really well into their late game strategy, too, which is usually to fall back and play much closer to the site if the roamers can fall back, seeing as they're not like trapped somewhere else on the map or trying to set up a flank. So the lack of drone economy is also making their playstyle that they tried to use on round 1 a lot stronger, because they're still trying to bring that into the picture for the late rounds anyway. So really nice strategy being put up here on the defense so far by Oxygen.
And I honestly think that that's just due to the veteranism that is on this team. Not saying that TSM obviously isn't. I mean, look at the names on that roster. But Oxygen are simply just playing better Siege from the defensive standpoint right now. Obviously, this is Oregon, and things are definitely going to change up after round 6. But we're not there just yet. Oxygen still has a chance to make this 4-1. Try and make things even more difficult for TSM here. Seems like a very similar take to what we've seen prior on this basement setup for TSM. Still droning out the mid floor, having Merc poised at the top of Freezer, making sure that no one can possibly rotate. But now it seems as though Oxygen do want to show face early on. We could see a possible rotate from Fox A, who's currently inside of Big Tower, which would change up a lot of TSM's game plan. They haven't had to worry about an early rotation in this entire game so far.
So more than likely going to see Fox get spotted out by Geo's drone right there. Bolo can kind of make the choice whether he wants to fight it or not. But Fox seems to have already made the choice for himself, and that he does not want anything to do with this right now. He's going to fall back, set himself up on the bottom stairs closet right there, and see if he can delay this fight till later on in the round. Especially with the drone right behind him, he had reason to believe that a player might follow it up pretty quickly, but not to be the case. So gets himself out of that stairs position and now just goes for the pillar setup with his other teammates here. That push is on the way, though. Bolo just peeks in. And he's going to try to self-check this real quick with the drone instead of having to rely on teammate info.
Good patience here from TSM and great utility usage as always, but now they need to try and get these picks once again, and this has been the problem all except for that one round that they won. Obviously, Bolo was able to get a nice 2K the following round, but I mean, that was very small potatoes when it came to a lot of things. Vertical some damage onto back tower is Oxygen once again making a stand. Fox A allowed to cross to his shield. Slash playing close, ends up downing one inside of construction. That's a big pickup onto Achieve. TSM once again spread thin. No chance to try and refrag this either, as Fox A's going to get aggressive. Can he possibly find the member? Oh, he sprints, but is not able to find Bolo. Bolo somehow dodging through all of that. Assumed that he was going to take the gunfight, but I was sorely mistaken.
Honestly, a good
Continues
call.
to try and contest.
Like a great call from Bolo, though, to get out of that fight, because he more than likely was in a really awkward angle right there to try to take that. It probably wouldn't have been ADS at that point either. So really good stuff for him to quickly try and dodge out of the way, and he does quite literally dodge away from the bullets, it seems, that Laxing tries to throw at him. So some respect on the Bolo for that play right there. Now we need to see if he can make up for the damage he takes, though, because he is still going to have to make a play later on in the round. Elsewhere in Freezer, though, Merc's trying to make a play. Oh, the read on the Nitro Cell is beautiful. After he hears the tapes, Laxing's going to have to take this fight, but no! Chala, now having the info, drops the hatch and gets the kill instead. Vert's there to support as there is a swing to take down Chala. Bio Bolo and Geo are going to fall just seconds after that as well, however, and ultimately OXG will still be able to control this round.
Again, very strong showing from Oxygen that are shutting down TSM at almost every single front. Very consistent inside of their gunfights, and TSM have not had a chance to refrag. And that's been the main problem. We talked about it, well, basically this entire map so far, that both of these teams are very, very aggressive and they like their frags. Well, TSM right now, not really lighting up the scoreboard when it comes to the frag department. I mean, this is something that we would expect from multiple people on this roster, but not able to win their ones and not able to trade either means that TSM, for the time being, are going to be on the struggle bus. Until we see this defensive flip, I would especially like to see them try and get this extra round. You'd really like to see that 4-2 split if you're a TSM fan, but going into the defense with Oxygen so far ahead of them, if it does end up going 5-1, that's going to be a big problem. Oxygen have been a pretty decent team so far throughout stage 2 with their offenses. Don't necessarily know too much about their Oregon offenses, but they've definitely been a strong team nevertheless.
OXG, much like many of the other teams in this tournament, though, fighting for a lot, especially with what I talked about earlier with their very unfortunate departure from SI a couple of months back earlier on in the year, of course, before everything got crazy. They really wanted to make an impact at that land. And things ended up going so unfortunately. This is a great chance for redemption. They're on the up and up based off the stage results, and they're looking strong to potentially take this tournament, especially if they're going to get off to a good start, as they have been so far in this match against TSM. TSM's last round on the attack, though, their last chance to find an impact within this half before we potentially go to a 5-1 scoreline in the favor of Oxygen. The setup for them is going to look very similar to what they've already used on a previous Kids defense, with the most notable feature of that being vertical up in tier 3 right now, and also having assistance via a soft wall on the attic breach. This round coming from Bio. The previous round, it was Foxe playing that position.
Well, it seems as though they've dedicated some ADSs inside of tower as well to try and prevent any breaching rounds from reaching vertical, but it's still going to happen. Burn the ADS uses one of those breaching rounds to make some vertical through that tier 3 catwalk area. Vertical's going to take a little bit of damage as well, but nothing too big to try and deal with. So now TSM slowing things down to attempt to get vertical out of tower. Let's see how long he can possibly last.
Like I said, the last time this was used, regardless of if vertical finds success or not, this is just a massive time-wasting maneuver. And much like the previous round, it's working flawlessly right now. Nice save on the drone there. Oh, a very edgy flash gets thrown in a vertical, arm showed and everything, but Vert is not ready to fire out at that moment in time. He's going to take a risk now by standing over these metal bars. His opponents have angles on that, and ultimately, he is not ready for the double swing from Bolo and Merc, as Merc will be able to take him out and end that sequence of events. Still, though, with about half the round having gone by, so he succeeds in wasting time. Now his team will have to make up the difference, a man down.
Yeah, 1:30 and TSM have just now gotten into the building. They have so many things on this list yet to complete. Still have to worry about map control and trying to force their way into Master or really anything else. TSM still has a lot of options here to try and attack this site. But the problem is Oxygen continue to keep people on roam, and that could be a massive issue for them if this goes unchecked.
See Slash setting up a slight angle here now through the Kids breach. See if he can find any pushes going through the kitchen itself. And it's not going to just be that position that'll have to watch out for. He's already been pressured, loses over half of his HP. This is fire coming in from down below now as well. The Chief is going to try to put the additional pressure on him, but no, Foxe arrives on that roam to save the day. Takes out a Chief, takes a lot of the pressure off of Slash as well, giving him greater freedom to play in Kids right now. Merc going to try to flash in, push Slash into a corner again, but he'll try to swing it and he'll pay the price for that, as Merc's going to be able to take him down and bringing this into a 4 versus 3.
Nice pickup here from Chalo, though. Bolo knifes Bio as he's been down, but now it's all down to Foxe. You can try and make something happen here. MP5 in hand, and that angled grip definitely going to be worth something here, but plant going down from Geo inside of dorms. Quick gunfire here from Bolo. Takes down Foxe. Didn't have too much of a chance trying to rotate in through Trophy. More than likely got droned out earlier on. Great round here from TSM in a much needed offensive round.
Much better read on the overall strategy, I think, that Oxygen was bringing out onto the table. Mind you, this is not a map that's really been played super heavily by both of these teams when I was looking at the records previously. Oxygen's only played this once in recent history, and TSM's only played it twice within the last couple of months here. So there was reason to believe if these teams hadn't been scrimming with each other, TSM might have not been super familiar with OXG's defensive setups, and that's prevalent by the drastically different results from round 1 and round 2 on the kids' defense there. Round 1, they spend a lot of time flailing around, not really able to deal with a tier 3 player, and then eventually they just don't have the time to execute. Round 2 on that site, they know exactly what they're doing, and piece by piece, even though the time is always in Siege, right, a little bit scary, they're still able to do it with, in my opinion, some really great confidence behind that. TSM barely making any mistakes in that round.
No, not at all. It was a very, very well done round from them. But now they're on to defense. We're headed downstairs, and we're going to be seeing a different take on what we're going to be holding the downstairs, like Geo not dedicating any reinforcements inside of electrical box. Instead, he lines the top wall with shotgun holes, as well as pops the electrical hatch. This is TSM on Rome.
TSM definitely going to try to bring the aggressive flair to their defense, just as Oxygen was doing to some extent, but this might be a different theme altogether, given it's TSM on Rome. They often own the Rome game in quite a few areas of this map when it comes to North America, and we're going to have to see if that will hold true today to get them back into this match. Only down by 2 rounds, so a promising start here to their own defensive half can very, very quickly bring them back into this map and back into this series as well. It's a small tower focus from Oxygen, however, and it's looking like one drone also going to get stolen away, but that does get shot. Oh, never mind. Not going to get shot out. So defenders still have one to use on their own. In fact, 2 drones at least are controllable by Achieved right now. So they're getting a lot of counter intel by having him play in the kitchen here on the Mozzie.
This is going to be a huge problem for Oxygen. This is looking like they're running into the same problems that TSM had. You know, drone economy continues to dwindle down. There's no real chance to try and get any information on these roamers. And with no information, the defenders can do really whatever they want, just like Achieved right here. No drones on him. He's going to be able to play this angle in a myriad of different ways, and it seems as though he wants to try and push his way towards white stairs. He's already given himself a way out. Great positioning so far, and TSM are just going to sit here and just wait for Oxygen to walk into their open arms and try and get these frags. But TSM now backing up. They've already, well, wasted quite a bit of time as they all just sprint back downstairs, and you can't exactly blame them.
Oh, not at all, especially with the way that some of the early rounds have been going. There was a pretty massive push about to start descending on their roam setup, and there's very good reason to believe that it might have not really gone your way, right? At minimum, you would have just gotten 1-for-1 trades, still with an okay amount of time left on the clock here, so Oxygen may have been able to work past that anyway. So TSM going to take some pretty similar flair to what we saw from Oxygen as well. Obviously, the roam game for TSM is much more emphasized in the early round here, but it's similarly to Oxygen, it's going to start to get peeled back a bit as we get towards that last minute or so now. Slash still looking for an opener here through the electrical hatch. That's all from the holes that were actually made by OXG, but nothing really being found out yet, as Oxygen is looking for a path and a way to start this push with the remaining minute. And unfortunately, haven't found it just yet, but it looks like the action is going to get started soon, irregardless here, as they'll begin to push down backstairs and construction.
Plenty of utility to make this happen, especially in the throwables department. Plenty of frag grenades from Slash and Fox as well, both still having one, but the main problem is lots of breaching rounds dedicated to the other members. The EMPs, though, of Laxing definitely going to make a large impact when those get utilized, but the execute seems to want to start now. Oxygen working their way down the back stairs, but Vertical's going to be the first one that meets his maker. Achieve takes down 1, but it's Slash for 2 inside of sight. Almost make it 3, but Bolo shuts him down from Freezer. TSM going blow for blow with Oxygen. Oh no, Oxygen now down a member. Foxy's been down inside of Pillar. Bolo's still alive inside of Freezer though. Gets taken down from Laxing. Chala into the 1 versus 2 with the Alda in hand. But now it's all up to Laxing to try and hold the cross, and he does it. Oxygen shuts down TSM and gets that 6th round.
Winning it in very similar fashion to how the initial round from TSM was won as well. They're a bit more bombastic, I guess you could say, with it, because all the kills don't happen in a sequence of a couple seconds. But much like the initial round from TSM, OXG has to try and pressure into the site with their remaining seconds, working against the full breadth of the TSM defense throughout the process of that entire execute. Nicely done, as clearly they had the intel they needed to get into the site, isolate out the TSM members. Things were definitely scary at the end in that 2v1 as the last player for TSM tried to make a swing and nearly had free reign over the planter. But thankfully, Laxing was there on the angle, ready to win the fight. He closes out that crucial 1v1 and seals the deal for the 5th round here for OXG.
I was just about to say that. Ended up being the 5th round there instead. Apologies about that one. Getting a little bit ahead of myself, but this is such an exciting series between these two so far. You know, I mean, TSM, they look strong. They look good. These gunfights tend to go their way, but Oxygen continue to battle back. It's the battle of that man count, John. We talk about this all the time, how a lot of these teams, when they really like that fragging power that they have, they want to try and keep the man count equal for as long as possible. And it seems as though both of these teams really enjoy doing that. So Oxygen right now simply just winning out on those gunfights, as well as limiting TSM's potential inside of that last round. Catching them off guard inside of storage was the biggest play that Oxygen could have possibly have made there. And who else to do it but Slash as the hard breach?
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to see the members of OXG spawn out here against the kids defense from TSM, and we will very quickly see Slash hop on up over towards the master balcony. He won't be alone in that either. We'll be supported by the sledge on the outside. We're going to see a quick nitro toss there from Geo to knock out the hatch, because Geo does have some pressure being put onto him. It's very reasonable to believe it could come from both directions here, so maybe looking for a different route out if he wants to truly double down on the aggression by falling through there, but that'll all be decided with time here. Merc wanted to swing against the two-man crew trying to work their way in on Master, but he's lost his Goyo shield. So at a minimum, he's going to have to wait a few seconds for the flames to clear, probably a bit longer. Geo's going to take that exit route in the meantime, and he's going to be speedy with it too, as he knows the enemies are close. We'll be able to dive down into the basement and get out of that arsenal position.
Fantastic patience here from TSM, but even greater drone work from Oxygen. Granted, they've lost quite a few drones in the process of that, but really good intel early on to remove a lot of TSM members. And with more than a minute 30 on the clock, they've already gotten Master open. This is a really strong start here for Oxygen inside of round 8.
One of the hard breaches open. Are they going to try and exercise a second one? That is the big question right now, as they still could try to push with just the positioning that they have, although it'll be very, very scary on a few of these angles, because they'll end up being massive choke points to work against them. Mind you, they still have a second hard breacher as well as all 3 of the X-Kairos, but they're actually just going to ignore those and try to rush right in. TSM very much ready for that beautiful shot from Merc, and there you go. TSM shuts it all down, with one exception there being the knife kill from Laxing. Other than that, it's just a non-starter for OXG, and TSM have no problem taking that round.
Well, after that execute, that setup from TSM looks very, very strong for those rushes inside of sight from that trophy side. I mean, we saw some adjustments, I'm assuming, with that deployable shield setup, but overall, really strong positions for those TSM members. Didn't lose anybody too early on. I mean, it was a very, very strong anchoring position. So overall, you got to give it to TSM on that one. Not too much more to talk about. I mean, Oxygen worked their way in sight, but they kind of just threw it at the wall and hoped that it stuck. And it definitely did not. And that's exactly why they're going to be changing things up here. Oxygen have identified that we're not having the most amount of fun trying to find these roamers. So what are we going to do about it? Well, we're going to 6-pick away from the Thermite. We're going to grab Jackal because he really likes feet. And we're going to throw him into the lineup. Find some people roaming and see what we can make happen.
Jackal not necessarily an operator we see coming into the pool a massive amount in recent times, but makes sense to bring him in these specific circumstances. NOMAD is out, is banned from this map. So that would usually be the first choice that OXG would normally go to in this situation. Jackal is going to be more than likely the logical second, since she's unavailable.
I mean, they obviously could go with something like a Gridlock, right?
Yeah.
But Gridlock is really only good on maps like Consulate or Cafe, anything that has a lot of staircases, because the more you're able to condense those track stingers, the more potent they are. But on this map, I completely agree with you. I think that Jackal's going to be really, really strong for Oxygen here. They don't have the Nomad pick, as you said, as well as Jackal just has some of the best utility at his disposal. I mean, smoke grenades, as well as the ability to track defensive members, and the C7E on top of that, one of the best assault rifles inside of the entire game. So, I mean, you give it to somebody like Slash, and you're in for a really good time.
That was going to be my next point, too, is that I don't necessarily know, like, the individual pros' thoughts on it, but for a lot of, like, the casual community, at least, the C7E is, like a gunner's gun. So
statistically, third best rifle?
Is it?
Okay,
Okay, I don't have those
Yep.
stats on me, or I don't spend a lot of time looking them up, but I would assume it's pretty close to the top based on the way it performs in my gameplay, at least, which, to be fair, that's not a lot to go off of, but still.
Oh, you got to give yourself some more credit, man. I've seen you play, John. You're good at the game, man. Listen, at least your KD is above a 1.0, which means you get to cast, and that's what matters.
It wasn't until recently.
I have no idea. I completely pulled that out of my... Listen, I pulled that out of the house trying to be nice. I was just trying to be nice. I was trying to make sure you kept your job.
I think it's in the 0.8s right now, but...
Why do you have to expose yourself on live broadcast, John?
Personally. Anyway, we've got TSM, quite a few players trying to maintain their positions on back steps right now. At the same time, a couple players from OXG trying to press it from the other direction. We're going to see most of them move into the big tower hold now, the big tower stairs, I should say, as those players that were holding a little bit more of an aggressive position like Chala have slowly fallen back to the pillar. Once again, playing into this slow retreat from TSM that they've been doing on their roam game throughout this entire half so far.
TSM very stagnant in what they're doing now. Don't have to worry too much, but good setup here from TSM. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Some Banshees set up to slow down the push. Frag grenades in to get rid of Geo's shield, but he's immediately going to smoke and rally. Throws up that reinforcement, and now Oxygen are going to have to find another means of travel. They're going to be able to get rid of this Banshee pretty easily, but they have a lot of angles to worry about, especially from inside of the electrical box. And I mean, oh my, look at all of those feet to be tracked by our good friend Slash. He's going to throw that one down, get some good intel inside of sight, but there's still a lot of work to be done. It seems as though they want to try and go for a main storage plant, and that's exactly where these sledgehammers are going to be dedicated. Start getting this electrical box open and try and get this single panel handled.
Achieved, holding a very tight angle here too, just waiting for an opportunity, and there it was. Unfortunately, it's going to be missed. Thankfully, Bio would take damage from another member of TSM. I believe it could have been Chala right there, bringing him down relatively low, but still, Bio gets the opener. It's quickly exchanged for, and away from that, no other success being picked up, but Bio again. Another nice entry here. So far, the only one that's finding any for Oxygen. Slash and Laxing now have to try and pick up the pieces in the final 20 seconds of the round. Laxing knows he's got Bolo directly behind him, but just can't get a lock onto that player. Tries to work past the hatch anyway, and will pay the price. Laxing, now the last man standing in a 1v2. 6 seconds remaining, tries to do it on the sidearm, but no, it's Geo to shut it down from the SMG-11. Instead, is TSM take this round.
And the difficulties of Oregon bubble to the surface. It's so difficult to try and get these executes down with the simple amount of utility, or the sheer amount of utility the defense have at their disposal. We see the Banshees, the shields, the reinforcements, everything dedicated to that very strong front inside of construction. Oxygen try and take it, but they have no means in order to do so. They get some initial frags, as you said, specifically from Biologic, but everybody else loses their gunfights, and it cannot be a one-man show. Oxygen get taken down, and this is getting ever so close as we are now at 5-4, still in favor of Oxygen.
TSM definitely starting to wake up here on their defensive half, making that impact known. It's going to be one of their toughest tasks yet, though. To be able to hold the meeting room and kitchen defense requires a lot, and a lot of extension more than anything from our defensive teams. That leaves a lot of room open if the attackers bring a better gun game here for potentially untraded kills, which means an untraded advantage for the attackers to build off of if they can get off to a good start. That's because you need to play this extended roam game into the upstairs part of the map. Based on the way TSM has been playing previously, they're absolutely going to do that, and if anything, they might double down on it a bit further than some of the other teams have. Let's find out, though, if that's going to be the case, as their setup is now concluding.
I'm really glad that you brought up that point, because inside of a standard setup, usually there's going to be one position that is not the favorable position. It's going to be the one that's extremely difficult to play. You're probably going to, have a lot of utility thrown at you, lots of gunfights and things along those lines. But inside of a meeting kitchen setup, there is 3 to 4 positions that all have to deal with this, depending on how Oxygen handle that. And that's a difficulty of this site. It's very hard to predict what these people are going to do or how they're going to utilize things. TSM are trying to throw a wrench into the game plan of Oxygen, though. ADS is dedicated upstairs, and Geo doing his best vertical impression.
Geo, based on his history here, should be able to perform this role absolutely no problem whatsoever. He has been the king of playing into situations like this, and more than anything, going unnoticed in situations like that too. Now, that later part, probably not going to happen. We've got another wrinkle in this too, as Merc is also lurking down below right now. The first kill of the round is going to go over to Foxy, who was able to successfully isolate out Achieved, taking him out of the picture and removing the Melusi. Not a massive loss utility-wise. She more than likely placed all 3 of her Banshees well before her death. But regardless, the 5v4, definitely a good start for Oxygen, and plays into that point that I was talking about earlier, where a lot of TSM's members are incredibly separated right now, so there's not really any room for TSM to trade those losses out, especially when it comes to the early losses that they've just taken, such as the death of Melusi right there. Now, a little bit more pressure going on to the Jaeger. Geo Still trying to maintain it. And remember, like I said, he's not alone. Merc is having a confident hold now inside of T2 here. So TSM constantly pushing back the Oxygen aggression and being able to kill a few of these players here too. But no, not meant to be. Vertical ends up finally taking out Geo.
Now it's a necessity for Oxygen trying to force their way into Big Tower. They already got the pick downstairs onto Achieve, and that's also given them control over Electrical Room. We see a lot of Nitro cells fly from there to try and prevent those stage plants. So now that it's in the hands of Oxygen, they can try and get the stage wall open and make some magic happen. That seems to be the case right now for Oxygen as they barrel their way into Big Tower. Foxay setting up for the split watch as well. OXG want this plant right now.
Coming down to the wire here, folks. We enter the final 40 seconds of the round. Only members of Oxygen that have even taken damage is Vertical, down to 25 from the duel at Tower. But we still have a roam game active despite the players on TSM being down to only 3. Bolo's upstairs in the attic. Merc is by the basement stairs on the hold as well. Slash with a good spot immediately is able to detect the play from the attic and is going to be able to take it out, denying a Nitro cell in the process. Defuser's now down on the ground, and everything for TSM has been left up to just Merc to play this out. He can't maintain, he can't find the winning position, so Oxygen takes it and finally gets themselves up on a map point.
Very, very strong round there for Oxygen, as you said, pushing them up to map points. But it's not all doom and gloom for TSM just yet. They do have a lot of options here to try and go back to, specifically dorms. And if they're able to win that, they can transition immediately into a basement defense. They've won both of those in recent history. Oxygen did end up winning their first basement attack, though, but not after we saw that immediate change up from TSM. Really, really strong front towards construction once again. So now jumping into this, it's the dorms defense here for TSM. Let's see how they try and handle this. I wonder if they're going to go for that tower hold. I don't think that they're more than likely going to, simply because we just had the 6 pick come in. We're going to have Goyo come in instead of Kaid. This means we're not going to have any wall denial here for TSM, but an even break, oh my goodness gracious, can't talk today. Even more of a breaking news story here for the offense. Slash 6 picking away and picking up the glass. We have smokes on deck, folks, but Slash is going to have to be self-efficient here. He's the only one that has that secondary utility.
And once again, if anybody has not been keeping up in the loop with the changes in Rainbow Six, Glass had a pretty big one recently, and that was a nerf to the deterioration of that little bar that builds up in his scope, meaning that...
Well, it's more of a buff.
Well, no, it was a nerf to the deterioration, meaning that it was a buff for him overall. So basically, it means that that little bar that builds up in your scope builds up very quickly now, and it takes a lot of movement to draw it back down. It's very unrealistic to be below 3 out of 4 of those bars, meaning that you pretty much have full smoke vision the entire time.
I watched Kickstar kill like 10 terrorists all from the same smoke grenade while moving around the entire time, which is very scary, especially when, you know, you're as old as me and you remember the Ying and Glass meta and you just have, you know, PTSD flashbacks to that. So it's not a great time. It's not the most amount of fun, but we haven't seen Glass have a crazy impact like he used to ever since this change has happened. Even when Glass has been brought, we haven't seen him get, you know, anything above, you know, 1K, 2K, nothing crazy where he's had such, you know, a change inside of the round where people have really started to dedicate him into the roster again, simply because smoke grenades aren't that potent. There's a lot of people on the defense now that can see through them, and that's exactly why we see this 6 pick come in from Slash. They don't want TSM to grab any bulletproof cameras or Warden.
It could work out on this site specifically, though, when you consider the amount of open areas just from a couple of outside angles, even like from the kids window that Chalo's looking at now, or the big window that the Glass could potentially have access to, and it could potentially cause further confusion by throwing smokes into those angles as well. So definitely a pretty decent possibility for Slash to, at a minimum, sneak off a couple kills against players from TSM that aren't aware that he's actually picked into the Glass and are trying to cross between positions or something like that. So, and I'm sure that Slash himself is hoping to capitalize on that as well. So we shall see if that'll end up being the case as we're coming down to the second half of the round now. A very slow build-up indeed, but Oxygen working to get more and more info here as they are very much focusing on that big window type of play.
Oh, Geo. Maybe going fishing, and he has a possibility of 2 big bass if
Maybe
this
3.
lands properly. Possibly 3. I've never seen 3 fish on 1 hook before, but I mean, new things happen all the time. Does it catch it? It does indeed. Oh, and Slash bodies Geo as well. Dorm's now open, but Bolo's got some verticality to play through. Anyone that hops through this, more than likely going to fall to the K1A. Chala's got a nice cross as well. Still a lot of things that Oxygen need to worry about. This is more than likely a death sentence if they try and dedicate to site right now. So, other means need to be taken up and pushed to the front of the line. Smoke grenades in now. Bolo, no lines of sight, but Slash are trying to work the angles. More smokes out now, but they need this pressure down low to try and alleviate some of this so Oxygen can actually work their way into sight. Chala, Merc, and Achieve all partnered up on site, worrying about this double window and this push, but Oxygen very slow to the upswing.
See Vert still trying to commit himself forward here. Bolo is going to be taken out as Foxe starts the push here in the final 20 seconds of the round. Slash and Laxing both taking a lot of damage here, but that's the siren call for Vertical to swing in. He's able to get one for himself, but is very quickly shut down by Chala. Brings us down to a 2v3. Attackers have the advantage, but they've got no safe way in. Chala gets an easy pickup for himself. Bio goes down, and Foxe follows suit. It's TSM's round as they control it in the 2v3 and keep themselves in the map.
And that exactly is why Chala makes the big bucks right there, folks. That's a quad kill from him, shutting down every single attempt to try and get inside of dorms, get inside of that big window. And that's exactly why TSM is still inside of this round. Oxygen had everything to try and force their way onto the site. They even got the picks with Vertical pushing his way in from White Stairs, but it was all on Chala to shut down that push and make sure that that case went unplanted. That's exactly what happened. Great stuff from him, and TSM still inside of this one, trying to push this to overtime.
Only one away from that as well, so this is it, the ultimate round of the matchup here, at least our first matchup in this series. If we end up seeing OXG come out on top of it, we move on to map number 2, and we'll move on to OXG's map number 2 as well, as they picked in the theme park here. But if TSM gets one additional round, we'll be tied up, going to 3 more to decide who our true winner will be here. Can TSM control their own map pick, or did they get thrown here and is Oxygen going to steal it away? That is the question that we're looking to answer on this round, and it'll be a basement setup to decide it as well.
Well, funny enough, we are going to have a 6th pick come in, or just allocation of Warden in general. Didn't exactly see where it came from, but nevertheless, he is here. He's among us, and he's got some goggles that see through some smoke. Bad news bears, though. That's not going to really affect the round at all, because Oxygen don't have a single person that utilizes smokes. So Warden, for the most part, is just another man with a gun, and he also has a deployable shield, so that's pretty fun. Geo can also take some gunfights at some range because he has access to that 1.5, but he might not be necessarily using it. TSM need to make the stand right now, though. They're right on the door of overtime, and they definitely don't want this map slipping away from them, because Oxygen can try and win this in 2-0 fashion. You got to remember, Oxygen's theme park is a marvel to watch.
Let's see if Oxygen can indeed close it out, coming very close on that previous round, but not able to get into the site the fashion that they needed to, taking it away from them. Drones are focusing heavily on just the small tower clear first. In fact, 3 drones supporting the push from Foxe right now as he moves on his own over towards back big tower. Achieved was here on the stairs, potentially to make an aggressive play against anyone that would have peeked the stairs, but not going to happen. He hears the footsteps and sees the drone, so he'll quickly fall back into a much safer position to play against the pillar hit when push comes to shove for that.
Going to be very, very patient from both sides here, and that's exactly what we've expected throughout this entire map so far. This is just how these more strategic heavy maps work. It's a lot of droning, a lot of trying to find where these defensive members are, and that's exactly what Oxygen's going to continue to do. There's still a lot of stuff to be done. Slash welding open a hatch with the rest of Oxygen just lying in wait to try and make this push happen. Some early X-Kairos, though, onto electrical wall, and they're actually going to go off. I assume that we're going to have an impact of some sort or something, but it's not going to be the case. Bio going to get both hatches open here. This is going to be a lot of options for Oxygen to try and make this push happen.
Still just a little under half the round to play it off of, too, so really early time to be getting this open. As long as they can properly transfer it into an actual execute with all that excess time remaining here, that's the big next question here, is we are starting to see players shift into a construction position as well as inch towards the back stairs here. They are very much getting ready to move in. The TSM is also aware of this. They've started to change up player positions. They've started to get ready for anything that might swing down that back stair into construction. They've got the Alda primed on the construction angle. Gio's playing double duty here as he watches both the stairs and the construction push. 45 seconds left here as well, so they know it has to be coming sooner rather than later. Especially when you get down to the 30 seconds, you have to consider those smoke plumes. We don't have a smoke in play, but generally you want to assume that it's there under safe operating procedures. Either way, first attempt from Oxygen to make something happen here just doesn't really work out. Foxy gets brought down to a sliver of his own HP, has to back away. At a minimum, yes, he saves his own life, but that doesn't mean anything considering we're at 20 seconds. What are you going to do with that life if you lost the round? Need to see the push happen now, and will it happen? That's the big question here. Io gets dropped with some heavy damage on the Geo just before that. Vert's going to fall a second later. Chala continues to rack up the frags, but Foxy and Laxing try to battle it back here now for Oxygen. It's all on Laxing in the 1v2, and there's just no time left. TSM will take it, and we're going to overtime.
Well, it wouldn't be Lynn if we weren't here already. Oregon going to overtime, and this is going to weigh heavily on who gets that defensive side first. And oh my, it's going to be TSM on defense. So TSM definitely well within their rights to try and take Oregon. This is going to be on Oxygen to try and shut this out. They need an offensive round here. They know how this basement setup works for TSM. They're bringing the Warden once again. I think this is a good idea. Granted, they didn't get too much use out of those the glasses, excuse me. Even trying to contest it with the stuns. I mean, we didn't really see anything happen, you know, pressure-wise coming his way that affected those very much. But that 1.5, as well as having those at your disposal if anything does happen, I mean, that's practically priceless inside of his position. So TSM going back to business and business as usual. We're going to see a very similar setup to what we saw last time. It's going to be up to Oxygen to try and make an adjustment to win this out.
So same setup here, more than likely for TSM, since it works out so well for them. They're going to continue to flourish under those circumstances on defense, and as Stokes had mentioned here, they get the start on defense. So they'll also get the third and final round on it too, should we need to go to that. TSM really on the run right now here. The only thing that would stop them, it would seem anyway, would be difficulties that could surface in the round after this one. It's up to Oxygen to make the changes necessary for the first round of OT to work out for them and not the other way around. Otherwise, it's going to be TSM taking control of the lead. And we'll have to wait and see if they'll be able to keep it that way on round number 8, or excuse me, on round number 14. Sorry, as we're playing into OT here now, so the numbers on the rounds get a bit more confusing to draw out of your head like that. But OXG on the field working their way to small tower.
We kind of just slap overtime over the numbers. We're in overtime.
Don't worry about the actual number of the round usually.
Well, at that point, it's like, yeah, this map's been going on for a very long time. You know, like we've been here for a minute. So Oxygen going to be starting with a small tower take and just a simple clear across scene. If any TSM members are worthy enough or, you know, aggressive enough to try and play on Rome, but as we've expected, no one going to do that. That's just an early pick waiting to happen. So TSM would much rather wait inside of sight. So far this series, though, between these two, neck and neck, and both of them running into very similar problems. It's been the offensive side that's been the massive issue. You know, the info not coming in on these positions, as well as just not having the utility to try and get through multiple sides of these defensive setups. That's what TSM is really strong Oxygen along for on these basement setups, is there's just so much utility for them to go through, and Oxygen have not been able to not only not get through the utility for the most part, but find those frags to make it to where they can actually force themselves onto site for that plan.
About half the round having gone by here for OXG. Once again, hatch is open, easy to play with, but the problem is they had that same position that they got themselves to in the previous round and weren't really able to leverage anything with it just because TSM played so passively on their defense and never really gave OXG the initiation rights that they needed to start their execute. They had to try and take risks, force themselves in. Probably didn't have a great amount of intel about current player info as well. So the same problems are more than likely going to surface here as you've got Geo at the construction door trying to deny any drones and whatnot that would be moving down both that construction door and the back stairs. Teammates are trying to change that, and they'll have the frag grenades to deal with the shield that Geo's playing off of this time. So at least will not have that safe harbor, but still, time is continuing to tick down. OXG are not necessarily getting any closer to the execute, and if they wait too much longer, they're going to be in the same exact spot they were on the last round.
Well, we'll see if Oxygen can get this done with precision, or if it's going to be more like a bowl in a china shop. We'll have to see how this breaks down as Oxygen just throwing drones to the wolves, all of them for the most part being eaten up. And yes, that's actually the last drone right there. Now it's down to face checking for Oxygen. This is not looking too good, but initial gunfights here for TSM as TSM is lighting up the scoreboard. Vertical gets one, not able to follow up though as Chala takes down yet another. It's all down to Bio to try and clutch things up inside of overtime. Doesn't even have case control just yet, but he's able to fix that and remedy it inside of Elbow. Ends up walking past it though, looking for those frags instead. Able to get one, but an immediate trade after some good positioning from Bolo inside of Freezer Hallway.
With that, TSM retakes control over their own map pick and puts themselves only a single round away from finally closing this madness out and being able to take that map with them to the scoreboard, up at 1-0. The potential to push it up to a 2-0 on Theme Park as well, as that will be our second map. So it's like timeout is going to be called here. I assume this is coming in from Oxygen. They'll be using this now. Like I said, guys, we are playing on LAN, so an important detail of LAN, I'm only explaining this because it's been a really long time since we've played on LAN. There are actual pauses on LAN. This is not a technical pause. This is just going to be an actual tactical pause for these teams to discuss things.
Yeah, time to discuss things back and forth and see what they can possibly make happen. This is more than likely focused on what's going to be going on their offense. Obviously, they can talk back and forth about the defensive setup, but their basement setup has worked time and time again. Just as a reminder, this is the first time that TSM has had the lead since round 1 of this map. So very big round inside of that last round for TSM, but now Oxygen have to try and make a stand. We're headed towards the basement site. They've got a good record on it so far against TSM. They only lost that initial round up against them, but with some really quick adjustments, they were able to lock out the rest of their defensive half, all except for dorms. So now it's up to them to not only close out basement, but try and remedy that offense going into a dorm setup.
All right, so match has been unpaused, and we are going back into the round here now. Just got to get through the 6-pick phase real quick. They will try to sneak, or at least they're thinking about sneaking this Mira in. We did see OXG use that one spec on round number 1, but if you remember, that round was not a success for them. The rounds with Cade usually ended up going better, so we'll see if this Mira ends up being an assistance or a hindrance overall to the strategy for OXG, as this is on map point. They could drop it right here.
I mean, the good news is for them is that, like, obviously they have access to the Mavericks, so having Kaid isn't going to change up too much, but I completely agree with you that them bringing him definitely has an impact. We saw TSM didn't have access to the Maverick the last time they ended up bringing him, which changed up a lot of things, but even with him being brought with the Maverick in play, that's still a lot of time to get that hatch open where you can simply blow it up now because you don't have any hatch/wall denial. So TSM going to have an easy time with this hard destruction. Oxygen has to make it hard on them with their site positioning.
Attackers must locate and defuse a bomb.
Right, we're going to see a Mira window placed down over here against the freezer push. Second one, if it's not already been placed, it hasn't. So we'll see in a second here, but it looks like it's more than likely just going to go on the usual position over here in the laundry closet. No reinforcements behind that one, interestingly enough, but shouldn't be too much of an issue for Laxing to play through.
No, not at all, but obviously some pre-firing can possibly happen through there. The good news is, though, is that it's really, really good vision. That's something that Mira has been one of the best operators in the game for ever since she came out inside of Velvet Shells. She can not only make your defensive setup more potent, but she's got so much destruction as well as a nitro cell in her pocket. There's a lot that she offers to the table for your defensive setups, and we've actually seen quite a bit of talk about these type of operators recently with a Rooney now on the board that's inside the pipeline for later on this year, but we'll get into that at some other point in time. What you need to know is that Mira could definitely change up a lot of things, and it's going to make it to where Bio can also contest inside of Laundry. They're worried about any attack here from TSM. They did not want to try and put any guesswork in on where this offensive front could possibly be coming from.
First half of the round just about having gone by here. Are seeing people from TSM get into position very quickly. They've taken over the entire first floor. This is an aggressive move from Slash just to kill a drone. You got 2 people waiting around the corner. The good news for Slash, though, is he is able to dodge all of those threats, and in the process ends up scaring away the 2 TSM members that were on the staircase. Another drone is going to very quickly take that one's place, however, so nothing really lost except for the drone on the defensive side, but nothing really lost in the vision department either there for the overall attacking side of this. Well, some extra pressure starting to work its way in from electrical because the hatch will get open. Means vertical will no longer be able to really fully commit himself to watching the stairs. He's going to have to do double duty between the two, and his teammate will have to do the same between that angle as well as the construction play. Merc is already looking for a path down here, trying to see if there's any other utility that he would be best served by, trying to use that breaching charge for it. It seems they do find something, so it rolls itself out. And there's not much reason to delay here anymore for TSM, so that drop, or just the general aggression from them, should be swinging out here at any moment.
Now, plenty of time on the board, and the big difference here for TSM is look at that drone economy, folks. It is massive. This is something that we haven't seen from any team all game, but now it's going to be very quick executed for TSM as they body multiple members. But Biologic finally fighting back. A cheap takedown one as well. 2v4 right now for Oxygen after that quick execute. Biologic still on site with that Alda. Could possibly make something happen here. That deep mag capacity that we talk about all the time, and they still have Denial with Foxy with that Nitro Cell as well. Plant needs to happen soon for TSM, though, as they've got all the crossfires now set up. A Biologic, lots of damage onto Achieve. They now know where he's coming from, and a quick shutdown from Foxy as well. But they don't hear the plant going down. Bio shuts him down through the smoke. Toxic grenade out and actually able to shut him down. Thought it was a smoke for 2 seconds, but a Nitro Cell actually keeps Oxygen in it. That plant not being secured, and what a round from the defensive members of Oxygen. I never thought that that was actually going to happen.
We've had so many of those just within this matchup here, and I think most of them have been on the basement holds too, where it's very clear that it looks like one team is going to win, but we end up with a completely opposite circumstance at the end of the round. So chalk another one of those up onto the board here in overtime now. What an incredible match so far, and we're just getting started, folks. It's only match number one, or it's only map number one, I should say, and we're only in our second out of 3 matches so far today here. Let's go into the final round. It's round 15. This is it. This one decides it no matter what. Whoever picks up this upcoming round here is taking the 1-0 lead at the beginning of the series. We'll see the Yana pick on the 6th there coming in for Bio. Not an operator we've seen come into the fold on this specific map just yet. But one we've been seeing quite a few teams flirt with every once in a while here when the need arises.
And that need has most definitely arose because Oxygen still running into those problems inside of that intel game. That last offensive round from TSM is the best drone economy that I have seen throughout this entire series by both of these teams. So Oxygen needs to try and mimic what just happened with TSM, and I think that this is a very, very strong change for them. Bring the Yana into the lineup. Now, if they're able to keep the Hollow alive and cancel it themselves, that's going to make it to where they can possibly get some more, intel usage out of her, but more than likely, it's just going to be off cooldown. Hop Yana in there, try and find some early intel and make something happen that way. She's practically unlimited intel, and that's something that Oxygen desperately need.
Intel with a slight cooldown, you could say, at least there, because there is a pretty considerable cooldown time if she gets shot. I think it's like 30 seconds or something like that if it gets shot. So
I agree, but I can't confirm. I think it's 30 seconds.
It feels like 30 seconds anyway. So
it does. It feels like a year and 2 months. That's what it feels
we'll use our
like.
bias confirmation on that one there, just to leverage the info. Either way, Merc's going to try to take a small pixel fight there. Won't end up getting much from it, though, and he does have to back away because that's a Goyo shield. And there's your answer for why you don't want to be sticking around. It blows up. He'll very quickly fall back into the site and rejoin the rest of the team. Well, put himself also in position right by another Goyo shield, so we may be seeing him fall back again relatively soon here. Oxygen, regardless, though, a very quick clear of that master hold. That's definitely a good thing, getting past the obstacle relatively quickly. Now we just need to see the rest of the team start getting into position, and they can begin to line themselves up for that execute.
Oh, what a shot from Merc. Pre-fires off the shoulder there from Vertical. Ends up taking his head off, and that's an early impact. Vertical hasn't had the best series so far just yet either. This is actually probably one of the worst games I've seen from him in quite some time. Currently 6-4-12, but such an early pick for TSM. That's going to be a lot of utility off the board and a lot of entry power as well. TSM sitting pretty for the time being. Oxygen now need to try and battle back. They still have to worry about a lot, though. Specifically, Bolo downstairs inside of security, currently on roam, and they don't even seem to know that anybody's home. Could have a quick pick inside of Z. So many options for him here to try and delay time as well.
Bolo and Laxing are within very close reach of each other, and you're going to see that fight eventually come out here. Bolo ends up winning the exchange against Laxing, takes him out. TSM's defense remains strong. They're up by 2, and there's only a minute left on the clock. Oxygen has to make this attack work, otherwise the map is over. Olo hears the call to start rotating as well. Tries to find a pick on a run out, but will not be able to happen. And Merc taking a second there to figure out what's going on. But he does seal the deal with the final pickup against Bio. And TSM are going to be able to control their own map pick here as they take control over Oregon and seal out the final round of overtime. It's 8-7. It's very, very close, but it is a TSM